So does anyone want to share how they expressed gratitude or steps they took to cultivate the garden of gratitude in the last week since we met before? I'm grateful that you guys all checked dinner.
Like collecting food for the food cover is a way to expressing your gratitude in your life, because you're very fortunate to have what you have.
Yeah, so that's the fruits of gratitude, is being able to express that by bringing the food for others.
I feel that way.
Oh, so whatever I did, I seem to have done again without meaning to.
I just typically pray. When I pray, it's mostly gratitude. It's my primary prayer.
Primary prayer of gratitude.
For everything. I try to do that every day, even for the simplest things.
Yeah, for simple things too, that sometimes we overlook. Anyone else have anything they wanted to share from the last week? So when you think of the word contentment, what comes to your mind? And I can tell you what came to Eric's mind after you guys share. I don't know if I can pronounce it, but what comes to your mind when you think of contentment? Yeah.
Well, I went to a birthday party last night and I slept really well afterwards. And I realized that contentment is being with friends surrounded by a lot of love, a lot of good food, and a lot of laughs.
Being with friends surrounded by a lot of love, a lot of good food, and a lot of
laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the people brought up a game, and I was like, oh, well, I think it's time for me to go home. But it was really a fun game, and we got a lot of laughs out of it,
and then you slept well.
Yeah, everything went well. And it just, I think that being with people, and like I say, a lot of love in the room, it just makes you appreciate how simple life can be and how wonderful it can be.
Yeah, the connection in the simple ways.
Yeah, and then when you sleep well, that tells you you're contented, because my mind is at rest.
Sleeping well in itself is a reason for gratitude.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the word contentment for me is a sense of peacefulness. I feel peaceful in my relationships, peaceful with friends, peaceful in what's happening in my life. I wish it was happening in the world, but I'll take it in my life.
So Nick said the peacefulness in all these areas. So people who are movie buffs that see different movies from me will get Eric's. So you can correct me. He says his first image is David Carradine in Kung Fu, The Legend Continues. Basically an Shaolin monk. Shaolin monk? Shaolin. Oh, but yeah, we look from the outside and we think that someone else has that peacefulness, and you don't know. I remember when I was counselor director, and one of the counselors said, "Oh, Meg, the thing about you is you're always calm. You're never worried. You're never upset." And I thought, inside, I'm a bundle of nerves. She has no idea. But we project on other people what we kind of would wish for ourselves. What does contentment look like in your life today?
Being back in the journey class.
Yay, back in the journey class.
I've been here for a while. I haven't been able to be here for a while.
We're glad you're here. Yeah. Okay. So I added a slide because we never defined the terms. So I wanted to add this. Happiness is good fortune or luck in your life or in a particular affair, success, prosperity, It's a state of pleasurable content of mind which results from success or the attainment of what is considered good. You know, so people keep thinking, I need that promotion, I need that recognition, I need this or that to be happy. But that's a fleeting thing. It is dependent, it's externally dependent. But contentment is having one's desire bound by what one has, though that might be less than what one would have wished. Not disturbed by the desire of anything more or of anything different, satisfied so as not to repine, and repine means expressing discomfort or longing for something, often with a sense of fretful sadness. I was reading, happiness is temporary and dependent on external circumstances like getting a good meal or paycheck. But contentment is a deeper state that we can cultivate through practices like prayer, gratitude, compassion, and is not dependent on luck or success. So how many people do you know that set their, goal? When this comes, then I'll be all right, then I'll be happy. And then they're dependent on that thing happening.
Yep.
I listened to an opening, not a sermon, but an opening greeting to a conference last night, the Mockingbird Conference down in South Carolina this last weekend. And the person talking was talking about our longings, and that our longing comes from what God has put in us as a longing for Him. And that when we look for that longing to be satisfied in other ways, it's when we find out that all of those longings are hollow, because the real longing is ultimately for Him. So when we long for peace, who brings peace? The ultimate peace, which.
So she's saying the longing for online, she's saying that the longing is that part, that the longing is really for God. We think it's for other things, but it's really that empty spot, that hollowness for God. Yeah, I've heard that there's a hole in your heart that can only be filled by God. And that's similar to what you're talking about. Sue?
Yeah, the first question was about what we're thankful for, that line of thinking, and then there's like contentment, and now, this. And so I was thinking about in Thanksgiving, I had read a previous journal, and that year I had listed everything we were thankful for, and I realized a lot of it had to do with relationships and people we were grateful for.
Mm.
So recently, this last weekend, I went to spend luncheon with Bill's cousins, and I was not close to my cousins growing up, and he's very close to his cousins, and this whole family line is completely, interconnected. But I had been visiting them every other month. They'd get together, and some of them live in northern Pennsylvania, some of them live here where we always get together. And I realized, going by myself, I came back and I realized how much I loved every single one of them, that there was this deep love. And my answer is, yes, because of getting to know each other, but also God did something. So, as you know, in my state right now, it's not 100% contentment because there's been a major loss. And yet, new loves are coming, new awareness of love, I'll say. God is never stopping.
Yeah, I like that.
God.
Even in the presence of loss, that there's new awareness of other loves too. Yeah. That we might not focus on, we might not see or notice.
Understand that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Very nice. So, challenge for these days. Contentment is not something we typically strive for. We want more, we want better, we want and want. If we are never satisfied with what things in this life, how can we know happiness? Eric gave me some notes. It's not just because we live in a capitalist society, because we could go there, right? This is how our society is set up under capitalism to always want more. He says human nature and our evolution as a species pushes us to look for more food, more security, more money. I guess the caveman would want to have a surplus there to, rather than not know where his next meal is coming from. But the question is, if we're never satisfied in the blessings we have in this life, how can we know happiness or gratitude? What do you think about this? Anne?
I get the capitalist side of it, but there's another part. I mean, we are taught as kids, we're taught to strive to be better people, or to be, when I say better people, maybe just smarter or kinder, or even if it's not about having more stuff, it's about striving for more. And in that case, sometimes getting on ourselves if we can't be more, or when you want to be, let's say you want to be kind and you're not kind. And so that could make us to feel not enough.
Yeah.
We're not enough.
Feeling like not enough. Not even kind enough.
And so that
Disappointed ourselves.
And that also leads to discord and a lack of contentment.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be satisfied with our current situation, and that's okay, as opposed to, you shouldn't be satisfied with your current situation. You need to improve your situation, whatever the definition of improving the situation looks like, as opposed to just being contented with, the way things are. Like Nick said, peace. Be peaceful with where you're at. And I think that's really hard.
Being peaceful, even on your journey to being a nicer person, a kinder person. At the end of the day, to say, oh, well, I did well in some things and I messed up in others today. There's still tomorrow.
Be still, because for I am the God. For I am Lord.
Mm-hmm. Most of my career, I worked with really poor people. And so that striving for more, they really did not have enough. And now I'm in private practice, and there are people who have a lot of money and still don't feel they have enough. And it's not only the acquiring things, there's also I should be achieving more, and I have to tell people, so what is, just decide when will you have enough. Just think about what you need to have enough. It's different for all of us, but not that I could do better. I could get another promotion. I could do this job in an even more spectacular way and get these kudos and the things that we get caught up in. And if they're coming to me because they're unhappy with their life and they're feeling stressed and pressured, one of the early steps I think for people should be to decide what is enough. And then after that, whatever else I can accomplish, that's gravy. Isn't that nice? But knowing that I've met the basic. Nick?
I've worked with some very rich people, like Boone Pickens and David Rockefeller and others, and you'd be surprised how they don't have enough.
Yes.
They always want to be richer than their friends. They always want to have more real estate than Ted Turner. I mean, it just never stops.
Right.
And, Boone Pickens's case, he made his employees pay for a 30-foot bronze statue of him playing racquetball, because that's what was important to him, that people recognized what a great racquetball player he was. So, it's on both ends of the financial spectrum. Poor people really do need more things, and rich people just never have enough. They're never satisfied.
There's a car repair place, and I'm sorry, I can't think of the name because they were great. But they would, every year, they'd ask us at Family Service for the name of a deserving, like single mom. And they would buy a car, all the guys that worked there would fix up this car, make it like new, and they would gift it to a person that really, really needed it. So that was there. They didn't have a Christmas thing. They did this instead in like February or something. And one year, the owner's wife told me that he was so happy that his employees had decided this year they were not going to give him a present or anything, but what they were going to do was fill that car with presents for the kids and things for that family. And she said he was just thrilled that they understood what was important to him, and that would please him so much more than anything else. But some people, it's not. It's what you're talking about is true. Some people just don't have enough. He asked the employees. It's just such a contrast. This guy asked the employees to pay for a statue of him playing racquetball of all things.
Exactly.
I think also a corollary to contentment is acceptance.
Acceptance, yeah.
Yeah, because life is not always gonna give us everything that we think we want or need, and if we struggle with that, it just compounds the suffering of, not having enough, or like, what Ann was saying, we're not good enough, but acceptance is kind of an antidote.
Yeah, acceptance.
I'd say it's a corollary to contentment.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time saying, but it's not fair. It's not
Yeah.
fair that I didn't get this. It's not fair that I don't have this. And life isn't fair. If you can accept that, it'll be nice if you can work towards it and get it. But if you don't, if we get stuck on what's fair and can't just accept and then do the best with what we have, right?
There are some people who thrive on challenges and they're looking for acclaim. And somebody makes a lot of money, say, wow, I wish I could do that. That's wonderful. That's reinforcement for them to do even more things. So it's kind of like almost hero worship in a sense. And our society seems to be built around a lot of that. Whether you look at our sports heroes and you look at the people who teach and are underpaid, it isn't fair, but that's the way the world is. You kind of have to figure out where am I in this global evolution that we've got. I've learned so much in my retirement in my involvement with Honduras. I go there and I see people who have nothing, very basic society. Shoes mean I have something. I have a t-shirt that's torn, but at least I've got a shirt.
Right.
And we've got racks of stuff and we're not happy with it. Why? Because our neighbor's got one that's red and mine's pink. I want both. And in our society, what happens? You look in the newspaper or online, you see advertisements, colorful, beautiful. Do I look like that? Do I need this? Yes, I need it. Of course I do.
Yeah, part of the advertising is trying to make us discontent.
Well,
So we'll buy their
that's the world
product.
we live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the look for acclaim, the want possessions, but a lot of it is that comparison thing, showing who we are.
Look,
The sports person
what was your,
versus
if your
teacher.
problem was I had to live 24 more hours, what would you do?
Okay, what would you do if you had 24 hours to live?
And not even you had to. You're trying to survive. I get up today. I don't know where my food's coming from. I hope I'm well. And if I'm sick, where do I go? I mean, this is the society we see around in parts of the world, and it's very real.
Yeah.
Very real.
Just getting through 24 hours,
24 hours at a
surviving.
time. I survive today. Tomorrow will take care of itself.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of us would have a really hard time having to learn to live with that,
Yeah.
not having that certainty when we lay down every night about tomorrow.
And, I teach psychology and teach about self-actualization, and there's this little thing I have the kids read, but actually people in the developing world tend to have a little bit more feelings of satisfaction than people in our society, because what we need to do to self-actualize is kind of complex. We have most of our material needs met, so we're trying to, get a promotion or do, whatever. Whereas for them, sometimes it's a little bit easier to just think about food and shelter and surviving. So it tends to lead to more satisfaction.
I think focusing on the second bullet point, that the answer is not focusing on getting more, being better than my neighbor. I think the focus becomes, how can I serve God? Every day I say to myself, if there's something I can do today that I know will please God. And I find happiness in that. I find every time I do something which I think was good and I put myself out for somebody else, that I did something for God and I feel happy about it. And I think that's really where contentment comes from, not from a collecting of things, but having that relationship to God and saying, what can I do today that will better the world and I know will make you happy as well?
So I want to repeat that Nick's saying that contentment doesn't come from having more things. It comes from what can I do for God today? And having done something, having done that. Yeah. Anybody else? There was some more hands before.
I found real contentment 18 years ago when I retired.
Retirement.
I had a very successful but demanding and a high pressure career with IBM and moved around a lot and was always going up to that next step on the ladder. I had tremendous support from Phyllis, and I was driven to provide economic security for our family because of my upbringing and my background being very poor.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I retired that I wasn't on that pressure track anymore, that we took time to really step back and realize how much we had been blessed with and really had time, made the time to appreciate what we have.
Yeah, you have the time to appreciate and realize what your blessings are. Yeah. That's so important. You know, when I was a single mom and I didn't have much money at all, I lived in a little tiny house, but I loved the fact that from work, I picked up the child and then I drove by some beautiful homes, lakes, and I thought, I get to see all this beauty. I didn't have to own it. If we can just look around and say, oh, this is wonderful to, you know, I am really blessed, even if I don't have all the dreams that people are looking for. Yeah. Reflect on these quotes. So the first one, contentment makes much of little, greed makes little of much. I like that. Contentment is the poor man's riches and desire the rich man's poverty. Ben Franklin. And then Sinclair Ferguson talks about Christian contentment, which reminds me of what you were just talking about, Nick, is the direct fruit of having no higher ambition than to belong to the Lord and to be totally at his disposal and the place he appoints at the time he chooses with the provision he is pleased to make. So your thoughts on either of those? Yes.
Well, I was gonna say, kind of impinging on what you guys were saying. You know, think about Jesus appearing to those guys on the beach at the Sea of Galilee and said, come on, you know, and they go, what do you mean? You know, they had a business to run, right? They were fishing and they had all their nets and they had all their stuff and it was their dad's stuff. So it was like a family thing. And they just went, he said, come on and follow me. Just come. And they were like, they gave it all up. And that is, I mean, how many of us could just walk away from your life and realize that, no, there's something going on here that I want to know more about. That's where I want to be. And then those guys, like, you know, they were not exactly employed. They were walking around Israel. So
Can we get past they didn't say, let me ask my wife first.
exactly. They were just, but they were, but whatever they were getting, who was ever feeding them was feeding them. I mean, they just took, you know, it was, they wanted to be in the presence of this man. And that was what was so important. And how many of us could do that? I mean, really, how many of us could just go, yeah, okay, fine. We're out of here.
Yeah.
So that's part of, and that was contentment for those guys, I think. Total contentment. They were happy doing what they were doing.
Can you think of a time that you might have felt this Christian contentment? Feeling you belong to the Lord and were at the place he appointed, the time he chose, with the provision that you just really were at the spot and you feel good about having been there and been open to hearing what God was asking. Nick?
When I was a Stephen minister, active Stephen minister, the thing I found most fruitful was going to nursing homes and serving communion.
Going to nursing homes, serving communion.
Seeing how much they wanted that, needed that, and loved that. It's being able to take the Lord within them, gave them strength, gave them hope, got them through their pain. and got them, closer to going to heaven. But you walked away from that, you had to be changed just by watching what happened by serving communion to people. And I think the key there is that line, be totally at the Lord's disposal. Because when you do that, you're denying yourself and your own wants and needs and saying, what can I do for others to lessen their pain?
I would challenge it, just one little thing, and we think we're denying our own wants and our needs, but we have a need to be connected to God and to be
Right.
where He wants.
Well,
So in our limited
I'm talking
vision,
about worldly needs, obviously.
yeah.
But yeah, because
But
I
I'm thinking we
believe
do
what
see
you
it that
said.
way because we don't realize, we often don't think that this is really a true need.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
But like you said earlier, we have in us a longing for the Lord if we're willing to listen to it.
Mhm.
And if we do listen to it, it's going to change our behavior and also what our goals and ambitions are.
Sometimes you feel really humbled when you listened and went because you're never sure that you're feeling the call or it's just my pretentiousness thinking that, but sometimes when you see what it meant, you just feel so blessed to have heard that one with all the ones that we know we miss.
I think too that it's when you have experienced something, you might have not known that you had put yourself in a position of being at His disposal. But it's that feeling that you have afterwards that God was in this, or I feel good about. I feel like I've been able to give something that they wouldn't have had
Mhm.
if God hadn't been present in this.
Yeah, listening to that feeling that you have afterwards
Yeah.
and realizing that's God.
And it was that longing, it's that longing that has been satisfied in this, even in the smallest way.
Mhm. It's such a good feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think God wants us to share. And we were talking earlier about how in our society there's such abundance, but then in the rest of the world there's all this great poverty. And it's I'm reminded of a quote from Gandhi where he said, "The world, there's enough to provide for everyone's needs, but not for everyone's greed."
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
contentment is the opposite of greed. I think we're producing so much, it's not sustainable, and we're not distributing. I mean, we waste like 30% of all the food that's produced worldwide. I mean, and people still don't know where their next meal is coming from. So, and I feel, like I said, immense gratitude, but almost guilt of like enjoying so much bountiful abundance of pleasure, things like that, where other people just, they don't, you got 12-year-old kids working in mines, in Africa, gold mines or, precious metal mines. And
Yeah.
It's really.
And if we're not in Africa with those 12-year-old kids and don't have access to helping them, we need to have our eyes open for who we can help here. Who's around us that we can do something for.
And I think it expands like that. There's a ripple out effect when we do share.
I definitely do too.
Yeah, it's,
So that's the greed up there that you're referring to too. Greed makes little much. Contentment is the poor man's riches and desire is the rich man's poverty. That's what you're talking about, that poverty of that greed.
Yeah.
Somebody else have something they were going to say?
we have a society that expects a lot out of us. We have timetables, we have schedules. When we hear about this food that's wasted, I've had the opportunity to work with farmers all over the world. And there's a lot left in the ground that could be used. The problem is there's a truck out here. That truck has got to be filled with potatoes and it's leaving at a certain time. So the machinery, the equipment, the timetables are set up to load up that truck and get it out of here so you and I on Monday morning can go to the grocery store and buy potatoes. But our efficiency level is not where it needs to be. We know that, but it's the scheduling, it's the expectations that others have of us, whether it's job fulfillment, scheduling, a monetary reward for having done a great job during the day. When you're down to basics, there's a lot around that could be done, but I hate to use the word, it doesn't pay. There's nobody there that's willing to go and pick up the few things that are left. That's where I think you recognize there's a lot more that could have been done.
Yeah, and
It wasn't done.
I think of Ruth going in the fields afterwards and picking up, gleaning what was left. Yeah, why can't we open it up? Okay, it's gone for the day.
Liability.
That's part of it.
Yes,
yeah.
that is
Really,
Big part.
in Florida,
Yeah.
you know, they had to pass laws limiting the liability of farmers who allowed gleaning because they were afraid if you let people on your land and somehow, you know, they trip and fall, we all know what kind of society we have. So the farmers were afraid, even though they wanted to open it up, they were afraid.
Yeah, so they passed laws that limited
Yeah, they were
liability, so
looking to, yeah.
Yeah, because that just makes sense, right? But yeah, you can understand the barriers that people have when they're thinking about trying to do God's will. Contentment comes down to this, trust in the Lord, like I didn't do this morning when I ran all over the place. Can you think of a time that you trusted in God, and it went better than you expected? Yeah. Having that awareness. So, scripture dive. This is another thing that I left at home, that I printed this out for you, but we've got it up here. Can you see it well? Can you see it well enough to read, for people to read? Okay, so would somebody like to read through the end of 7?
Sure, I will. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious for anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving present your requests to God, and the peace of God which transcends all understanding will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus.
And who wants to read it after that? Or I'll read this, and then there's a little bit on the next page. Someone else can volunteer. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And I actually have this in my desk, and sometimes I give it to someone who's in that needs to think about something else. It's wonderful. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you.
I'll read.
Thanks.
I rejoiced greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through him who gives me strength.
Yeah.
Any response to this reading? It's lovely reading, I think.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we forget that we knew what it was to be in need when we're doing better, you know, keeping that memory of being able to hold both. I have needs here, but I also have plenty here, you know. Betsy?
Back in the day, when my husband was the assistant minister at Newtown Square Press, David ran the youth group, and every year we took kids on a work camp. And I mean, we did this like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. We hooked up with this group that was non-denominational. The kids came from all over the country, and they'd focus on one particular area of the country. And I went on several of them with them. One of them we went to was in Sunbright, Tennessee, and it was quite a jaunt. And here's these kids from Newtown Square, who some of them are at Episcopal Academy, some of them are like a well-off kids, really, they've got the latest shoes and the greatest things. And we took them there and we rode on a school bus, which my husband drove, by the way. We drove a school bus down to Sunbright, Tennessee with, 30 kids. It was great.
Lucky him.
So we got down there and stayed with, there were probably about, I'd say maybe 400 kids in this group. We stayed in a school that was from the community that had been condemned that year. So like when you plugged your hair dryer in the outlet, like when you pulled it out, the whole thing came out with
Oh,
it.
boy.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So, but it was what it was. And we were in sleeping bags on the mats on the floor. We worked with these families, and the families had contributed X amount of dollars, and they've been identified by the local agencies as needy, and they had specific things that had to be done. One of them we had 3 crews that went to, it was 18 people that went to this one house with this woman who was diabetic, and her husband was kind of estranged, although she had 2 kids. And and so this guy would come in and out periodically, and he showed up the day we showed up. Now, we brought all our own tools, okay? We brought all our own tools to do the work, and we were given supplies that some of these people had contributed to in the county and other agencies. And we had to dig a septic system, and we roofed that house. And the 3 women in the group that I knew, we were letting the kids do a lot of it. Now, I learned how to glaze windows and do all this other stuff. How many people in Newtown Square, glazed window, right? I mean, you called Anderson Windows and had it replaced, whatever. But these kids got involved in this, and they didn't have, like, I opened her refrigerator door and I couldn't identify any of the meat that was in there because it was game. It was all game because the husband had hunted and put it in. She was a recipient of all, when you take the clothes in the bags to Goodwill or whatever, she was a recipient of those and probably had about 20 bags in the one room of different clothing. So, and they had painted the kitchen cabinets with automobile paint, and of course they fried everything, so it was grease all over the place. Now, the kids were working on the septic tank, they worked on the roof, I can't remember what else they did, but I wound up with these 3 women going through her house and helping her figure out how to work with this, because it was beyond her. It had gotten way out of control and she couldn't handle it. And the husband, who'd come the first day, kind of saw what was going on and liked what was going on. He supplied the cement mixer for this septic that was being built. And he started sticking around. So the relationship between the husband and wife started to kind of mend a little bit. The kids were, they were up on the roof, they were down on this. These kids saw poverty for the first time in their lives. And these people's dirt became their dirt. That's what this is all about. It's their poverty became these kids' poverty, and they wanted to see it get better. It was never going to be like at home at Newtown Square with their backyard pools, but it was going to be better for this family. And, there's a member of the choir whose son was in that group, who was a kid at Newtown Square. And he has said, and he's over 50, he has said that was the most important thing I ever did in my life, to recognize what this was all about, that we're all the same. We come into the world the same way and we go out the same way. And it's what you do in the middle of it that's going to count. And you want to hope that what you do is going to count for something.
Yeah, it's what you do in the middle before, when you come in and you go out.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a really, I'm sure they've never forgotten that.
Oh, no, they haven't. Yeah.
So the historical context of when this was written, Paul is in a Roman prison. I don't know, he has to tell us prisons are not a good place to be. I'm glad he mentioned that. I wouldn't realize. I'll cancel my reservation. There are no rights, no concern, no meals provided, no medical care. It's in these conditions Paul is writing to the Philippians, and he centers around two themes, joy and contentment. How was Paul able to keep a positive spirit in the face of grim circumstances? How do you think? There's three questions, so think about which ones you have comments on. How do you respond when life gets difficult? Is contentment even on your radar? And what are some things you can do to grow a well of contentment in your life? So whichever strikes your fancy. And
It's that slide you had a couple of slides ago, which is trust in the Lord.
Right.
I mean, the whole, I don't want to cut off the conversation, but to me, the answer to all three of those is trust in the Lord. You know, because that's what's worked for me when I trust in the Lord most of all when I'm in a low point. Funny how that works, because I take God and Christ for granted when everything is fine. But
yeah, I'm with you. And then here I am, Lord, again. Now I remember.
yeah,
I really
find
need to.
I find my faith when I'm at my bottom. Yeah.
Because we have so many distractions and we lose sight of what's important sometimes.
And we get comfortable and, and we think that we did it all ourselves and we get full of ourselves, a lot of pride, at least myself, I know that's what happens for me. And then something knocks me off my perch, like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
David's mantra.
Okay.
I find the second one, how do you respond when life gets difficult? Well, definitely first I try to fix it myself.
Yeah,
I definitely try to fix it.
you do that thing too. Oh Lord, I forgot about you.
And then contentment's not on my radar until I realize I'm hopeless.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I'm probably hopeless to really fix it.
So how did Paul keep a positive spirit? So ironically, times when I've had surgery or been injured, I broke my leg 5 years ago, I had knee surgery this fall, and I had some time to sit around. And I'm always thinking, oh gosh, well, about all the things I can't do. And then surprisingly, I'm very productive during those periods. I'm able to read things that I wouldn't normally have time to read. I can send emails to people. I can follow up on things. I can, the different organizations I'm involved in, and I can prep for some things down the line. I mean, I'd rather be up and moving and doing stuff, but sometimes you almost kind of need a little time off to work on some stuff. And I think Paul would have just kept going, looking for more cities and more churches to establish and stuff. And what he needed to do probably, he needed to cultivate the places where he already started churches, because clearly they needed some help. And I'm not saying God put him in prison, but it kind of worked out that he was able to write these letters for me. I guess wasn't some of Paul's most productive periods when he was in prison. So
God let him out, right? It's kind of a big
Twice.
Yeah.
And that times when you're having surgeries where you can't take care of yourself, and people who are around you and love you get to take care of you, and that humility that you develop by being dependent on somebody else is not a bad benefit.
And then, Joni, I think you realize too that moment that you aren't just loved for what you can do for them.
Yes. Yeah.
That there is something separate there, that inherent worth.
Yeah.
Any other comments? If you are content, no matter the circumstances, then you truly can do all things through Christ who strengthens you.
I like to put when instead of if.
Yeah, that's good. I like that too. I forgot about God this morning, but when I do remember him, that doesn't always good. So we'll see who wants to share. It's entirely optional, but where is an area in your life where you need to grow in contentment? And what are some things you need to let go of in order to become content? Because I have this great quote about, and I don't remember it, I can't do it word for word, but about you have to learn to let go. Oh yes, I've got to do all the things that aren't important to me. I've got to learn that too. And no, you have to learn to let go of the things that are important to you. You've got to learn to let go of some of the things you love because you can't do it all. And that was a sobering thought. Yeah. Sue.
I find it's important to rest. Because sometimes one can get so energized to resolve whatever X that it's draining. And if we just rest and pray and stand back from a while, that really helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Resting, praying, standing back for a while.
Yeah.
Maybe needing to be in control of everything.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give up needing to be in control of everything.
So that's like our Wednesday morning Bible study, right? Relaxed.
Oh yeah, that's our current
Well, it's like, that's what we've been talking about for how many weeks now, about just letting go and realizing that we are not in control, that God is really in control, and kind of coming to that recognition, and then just going, right, okay.
I loved it. They got me in the beginning when they said, let your mind wander when you're praying. It's all right because God's putting those thoughts in your head. So it's all right, just follow them. And I thought, thank you, the permission. My mind is wandering.
And that was something I learned a long time ago when I first joined Al-Anon. One of the first slogans that they said, and this was 1986, let go and let God.
Right.
And I say that almost every morning. I said it this morning a couple of times, just in my morning meditation, and I find that really, really helps. And it reminds me to put my faith and trust in God. So, but let go and let God, because there's so many things I can't control. Can't control anybody's behavior but my own. I'd like to control everybody else's behavior. But I just remind myself that I can't control anybody's behavior but my own. And that's really hard. Really, really hard to do. So that prayer, and for me, it's a prayer. Kind of, maybe it gives me contentment. I don't know. I haven't thought about it in terms of putting a name on it or a definition like contentment, but maybe that's what it is.
I think as we age, we all have to learn we need to grow in contentment and let go of some things. It's just been in the last month that I've decided with my balance issues, I'm going to stop climbing up on the chair and then onto the counter to get things out of the top cupboards.
Yeah.
I'm 72 and I was still thinking I could do that. And I'm finally saying, no, you have to let go of some things. It's just, so just life itself is going to make us get to the point where we have to let go of some things.
I think as we get older, you realize you have more and more limitations and things that you could do at one time, you can't do anymore.
Learning.
Yeah, and it's not always comfortable. And I'm living in a place where there are a lot of older people now, and one of the hardest things is when somebody finally says to them, you can't drive anymore.
Yeah,
You've gotten too old. And they see it as a loss of freedom, as a loss of mobility. They can't get to doctors. They can't get to the stores. I mean, it's a nightmare.
It's a big loss.
It's a huge loss.
Not being able to drive. And then there's also, you have to let go of the unwillingness to ask someone else for help.
Right.
Of thinking that you can do everything for yourself. Yeah.
One of the things I learned in my life was, I was always pretty self-reliant and pretty egocentric. So I had problems. I always wanted to fix it myself. But as you get older, you also realize family's important. But I found that friends are even more important. Like when I had my heart attack a year and a half ago, you can't drive for a couple of months. You can't get to the grocery store. And I got through those times because of friends here in the church. People who knew me and said, can I help you? Is there something I can do for you? I'm going to the store. Is there anything you need? And, if you, like my case, I have family far away. I didn't have those friends. But again, as I've gotten older, I realize how important those friendships are and those relationships. It also gives you a sense that you have to pay back, that you should do things for others who are in those situations. And I think it's part of maturing, but it does come with age.
Yeah, well, aging is, unavoidable. Maturing is optional. So we do our best. We try, right? So let's end it. He had mentioned, he gave another quote, and I didn't think I had to quote it, was from Mark, and it was actually the Lord's Prayer. And it made a lot of sense that we end up thinking about how we turn to God every day and ask him for even our basic needs. So let's just say the Lord's Prayer together and try to take that spirit of, I can always turn to God, and he is enough for us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. We could just imprint that on our soul. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.